Hey there, everyone. My name is Snoo, and welcome to what may end up being my most controversial video of this league. God touch farming, A.K.A. the goblin meta, as it were. Yes, that is the topic at hand. I'm well aware how a lot of people feel about this, very negatively, about how the game is currently balanced, the way loot changed in this league. However, that said, make no mistake, I had a great time this league for a variety of reasons, and much to my surprise, so did a lot of other people, especially as they responded to much of the content that I put out this league. My content was very different from most people, even big name streamers. Many big name streamers who just kind of went AWOL actually shortly after because of, well, the changes to the game, and some of that being sound or well-founded understanding of the changes, and some of it not being not so well-founded. Some of it being based on poor information, misinformation, what have you. We're going to be talking about that today. My goal of this video is to kind of basically enlighten people on a different outlook about patch 3.19 as someone who played the game, thoroughly enjoyed it, and got tons of feedback from people in my community. I'd like to think I sort of championed the cause on this one a little bit. It's not something I set out to do at the beginning of the league. It just kind of turned out that way. People are looking at me and my content this league and thinking I'm sort of, the guy. I'm the guy who, popularized God Touch Farming, at least from solo viewpoints. So, if I'm the guy, then I'm the guy who should make this video, I guess. So, yeah, we're going to kind of overview what happened this league as far as the loot and how the sort of God touch farming evolved, especially with some of the videos I came out with. Then I'd like to address some of the criticism, and that'll be kind of the meat of this video. It's not fair for me to make a video about this and without addressing some of the major criticism, because I think there are some, and they're not completely unfounded criticisms. I think they're fair in part, but I think there's a lot of room for debate there, and we'll get into that. And then at the very end of this video, I'm going to kind of introduce you guys to my Discord to give added credibility to what I say here, because if I'm the only guy standing on one side of the room or standing on the island yelling all this stuff, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But the fact of the matter is, one of the main reasons I am going through making this video is because I'm not the only guy who feels this way. There's a lot of people who thoroughly enjoyed this league, who definitely hopped on the train known as God Touch Farming, Magic Finding, or this iteration of Magic Finding, if you would. And they need a voice. It's important to hear multiple perspectives, to hear different people's voices. I never like to see anytime there's a sort of hive mind mentality or this echo chamber that's building on one side of the equation about any topic. It could be, even about a video game. I don't like seeing that. I always tend to push back against those kinds of things. And that's exactly why we're kind of getting into the video here about the sort of overview. That's kind of why I stayed quiet in the beginning when everyone else was kind of jumping on the bandwagon about the whole doom and gloom scenario where, loot got nerfed by X percentage, and there were some things that were factual, there were some things that were a little bit misleading, misinforming a lot of people, and the unfortunate truth is that people got the wrong idea. I gotta say, overall, people, their outlook on this league is founded on a lot of misguided information, unfortunately, and it's a shame to see. There's some truth to what happened. Certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say that loot wasn't nerfed in any way, shape, or form. It was changed, and it was nerfed in some ways, and it was buffed in others. So, I want to talk about how this kind of all started. I don't want to really, get into any major details. You guys know some of the stories about what things happened. A lot of big name streamers experienced a very different, had a different experience about the game, and then they were all talking amongst themselves, and basically there was this collective opinion even among big name streamers, that the game was trash. Now, the loot was gone, and where's the loot? Where did the loot go? That was kind of mindset, and a lot of people quit. An enormous number of streamers quit. I should honestly be thanking them because I had exponential success this league, and it wouldn't have happened in large part, I think, if not for the fact that so many streamers just went AWOL way earlier than they normally would. Left a lot of viewers, a lot of people who were hungry for content, left a lot of them in the dust. A lot of people who really wanted to give this league a chance. And thank goodness for those people, because when I started exploring the game and the loot and started, I came out with these perception versus reality videos. That was kind of the big launch pad for the turn of events, you could say, especially the third one in that series, which was about God touch farming. I didn't know really 100% what to expect as I started doing that, but I knew that I needed to have some magic find on my character, and that I needed to use reliquary scarabs, and that I needed to give my chance to see, what this whole God touch thing, farming thing was really all about. And so I did. And while everybody else was, getting upset about TFT magic find calling meta, or 4-man group tripped out magic find gear color in the group, everybody was was all about that. I was over here exploring the game in a more conventional way. Hey, what about a solo player who just plays the game, puts on some magic find gear, builds a character that's fairly well tailored for the content, and does that? Guess what? It worked. Made a lot of currency that way. And a lot of people saw that. And people got excited about it. Those who still wanted to give the league a chance, and maybe those people who actually do like Magic Find. You know what? There are a lot of people who are even brand new to this league. This is their first league ever playing, and they were seeing my content more than a lot of other people's. They hopped on with what was going on too, and my concurrent viewership on Twitch basically like quadrupled in the course of half a week out of nowhere. It was kind of nuts. And then suddenly I had this enormous demand on me, this pressure to start a community, like an actual community on Discord. People were like kind of getting fed up with the fact that I didn't even have a Discord. So I was like, well, why do I need a Discord? It's just one more thing I have to deal with. Well, I did create the Discord, and fortunately it's not nearly as much of a headache as I thought it would be. And it was a really good thing. I've been delightfully surprised at how well people have been, interacting, how active people have been. Like a month and a half ago, didn't even have a Discord, and now, there's like hundreds of members on there. And I'm going to actually show you guys, give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek in case you're not on that Discord. We're going to peer into that, and I'm going to show you guys just what goes on in there, so you can see it's authentic. I'm not the only one standing on an island shouting about the league and trying to defend what happened this league. Now, it goes without saying, everybody has their qualms about game balance. I'm not 100% happy with how the game is balanced. Do I think there are some things that could be changed about the way God Touch loot works? Yes. Could it be a little bit less dependent on Magic Find? Sure, it could be a little bit less dependent on Magic Find. Well, I'm not going to talk in great detail about how it works exactly, but I do want to address some of the major concerns. So this is where I'm going to bring up my view on God Touch farming and kind of defending some of the points that people argue against. So as far as I can tell, basically every argument against God Touch farming falls into one of three categories. Either A, it has to do with the way loot was shifted from one aspect of the game to another, and people don't like that the way that happened. B, it has to do with build diversity or build viability, and that has a lot to do with Magic Find characters and stuff. Or C, the FOMO, and fear of missing out. And I feel like the latter one is probably the strongest argument, but I do want to address all three. And I will attempt to steelman the arguments for you, because I don't want to, I don't just want to make this highly opinionated, highly charged video. I do want to give credit where credit's due here. So as far as the shifting loot, people are not happy about the way that we used to have loot that just dropped raw on the ground from a variety of mechanics, primarily Beyond, and then suddenly it's just kind of a lot less loot is dropping from those sources, maybe Alva, Abyss, Beyond, sources like that, and then it's dropping, it's just being transferred, so to speak, over into highly challenging to kill rare monsters that do not automatically die if you engage with them. They do require certain character player strength to contend with, and of course it does make it so that not everything is just cannon fodder and the loot's just not going to be given to you freely. So that's one defense against it. I do think some of the complaint about that change is people just not wanting to actually work for their loot. They don't want to actually play the game and ever be in a situation where they might fail to kill something that drops loot. There was a famous little video I came out with earlier this league where I failed to kill a god-touched monster that was probably going to drop some divine orbs. And I walked away from that experience feeling good about it. And you guys can watch that video if you want. I think that kind of shocked some people when they realized that it was possible to have that outlook in the face of a situation where, you know, maybe your character is not strong enough to deal something, or maybe you're not skilled enough to deal with something, and therefore you don't get the reward. Ta-da! What a concept. I think that's a good concept, actually. The video game should have some challenge and should put you in a situation where you may or may not see the reward. Also, one of the great things about, in my opinion, about the shift is this is something that is often overlooked. Let's compare bossing, for example. So when people go bossing, they're like an invitation. So like the pinnacle of bossing is something like the feared invitation, or maybe Uber bosses. But let's take the feared invitation, for example. A bosser has to obviously devote some time to reach a point where they get the feared invitation ready to go, and they can, if they have a really strong character, they can roll their invitation hard, and they can get maximize their chance of getting loot. And the nice thing about that experience is that as that player defeats the encounter, is in the middle of defeating the encounter, they're getting ready to kill the last boss or two, they know they've won. And, that feeling inside, you get a lot of dopamine rise just right then and there before you even see the loot, because you know it's coming. You know there's a very good chance that you're going to get something really valuable, be it a triple modded Watcher's Eye, a Bottled Faith, Flawless Chayula Breachstone, I don't know, just something that is going to earn you a lot of currency. I think that's good. I think that's great that there's certain aspects of the game that feature that way of receiving the dopamine hit, as opposed to just simply destroying cannon fodder, hours on end, and then occasionally, oh wow, an apothecary dropped. Oh wow, an enlightened support dropped. Oh wow, divine orb. Oh my goodness. That's nice. That's great that exists, but it's nice to have more than one aspect of how loot works, and to run into a monster that you have to contend with, and knowing that monster, or at least understanding that a much greater chance that monster is going to drop something valuable. That's a good feeling to have, and I like being eligible to have that feeling as a mapper, instead of just having, or that just being exclusively rewarded to players who are bossing. So I understand people don't like change. I think that's actually part of it. People are just kind of lazy. They don't like change. So shifting the loot from one thing to another, it's kind of a weak argument, in my opinion. I think it's rooted primarily in the way people just don't like change, and then they're not up for the added challenge as well as it stands. So in my opinion, out of the three major criticisms, that's kind of the weakest one. I want to move on to build viability, or build diversity. Okay, so a lot of people are not happy with God Touch farming because it requires you to wear Magic Find gear. Now, there is actually a second argument that has to be addressed first of all, and the second argument is Magic Find good for the game? A lot more people feel like it is. It is as far as people who... There are many people who like Magic Find, but they don't like God Touch farming in its current iteration. So I do need to address the fact that at least there are some people who just genuinely do not like Magic Find. They do not like the fact that there exists gear that has rarity rolls, quantity rolls. They wish it was just all normalized and that we could all just wear, the strongest gear possible and we could all just have strongest character possible. And my argument against that is, well, you kind of just shot yourself in the foot, because if you're going to talk about build diversity especially, my friend, quite literally, Magic Find is another form of gear. It is build diversity. The fact that there is a roll that gives you increased rarity of items dropped or increased quantity of items dropped, that's adding to the diversity of pool of different modifiers that can drop on gear. So first of all, you lose the argument on technicality right there. But at least as far as, I'm not just going to leave it at that, of course. At least as far as build viability, I kind of get it. If you have to wear, if you feel like you must wear Magic Find gear, you're putting yourself in a situation where you have to sacrifice some other stats. You have to sacrifice player strength, character strength, your survivability, your damage, what have you. I think that's good. I actually think that's healthy, and I've talked about this before. I even came out with a highlight video talking about how I think Magic Find is good. I'm not going to repeat everything that I said in there. Long story short, one of the sort of final iterations of a player's experience in gearing, in my opinion, is being so overwhelmingly over-geared that they realize that they don't need to have this much player power, and therefore they can actually scale back their gear, start taking on more Magic Find stats, and make their character weaker, and then once again contend with the game. Going from a place where, starting from the bottom, where everything is really hard to kill, getting geared up, getting really geared, getting way over geared. The game is a complete joke at this point. And then sort of under gearing yourself purposely by taking pieces that just offer you Magic Find more than anything. And then you actually have to play the game again. And I see that as sort of a healthy cycle, so to speak, a gearing cycle that takes place. Magic Find, of course, increases the number of drops you get, increases the currency you find, which allows you to get even more gear, more currency, or make another character, or what have you. And I certainly see it as a net positive. Are there some builds that cannot farm God Touch without keeping all of their most powerful gear? Sure, but I got good news for you guys. Probably the strongest argument against this issue of build viability, as far as having to put on Magic Find gear, is Magic Find gear itself, particularly rarity, which is the primary type of gear, has severe diminished returns. Meaning, if you just substitute out one piece, or two pieces, but especially just one piece, that one piece of gear, that Ventor's Gamble, that well-rolled Ventor's Gamble, is going to have an enormous impact on the added amount of extra loot you're going to get from the rarity, especially with the God Touch farming and how that works. But the second piece is going to have less of an impact. The third piece is going to have less of an impact. The more Magic Find you get, the more rarity you get, the less impactful it is. And to help illustrate that, one of my record-breaking God Touch drops was, I think it was 63 winged scarabs off an Innocence Touched. I remember there was only like 6 or 8 gilded scarabs dropped, which means on the conversion tables, 63 items out of roughly 70 items were converted to unique. So what good is having a bunch of extra Magic Find going to do in that situation, or rarity? What am I going to do? Convert another gilded scarab into a winged scarab, or another 2? No, I'm already sort of soft capped out on the amount of rarity I have. I've already gone like beyond the limit of what I needed to do to get a good result from there. So there's definitely some misconception about how much you need to invest into rarity in Magic Find. I know there's a lot of PoE Ninja profiles out there with like 1,000% rarity. Absolutely ridiculous. You don't need anywhere near that much. Even just 100% or 200% rarity and a little bit of quantity will get you a long ways in the way of farming God Touch. We're talking the difference between dropping 0 to 1 Divine Orbs to 4 or 5 Divine Orbs. And it's going to have an enormous impact, just a little bit of Magic Finding gear. And that's something I've been trying to tell people this last month who have been trying to get started on God Touch farming if they want to, tackle that. No, you don't have to be running out a multi-mirror tier tornado shot Deadeye, which is sort of the cliche character. To be running this, you can run whatever character you want. You can probably substitute your ring. Maybe you can substitute a flask or two for the gold flask. Maybe you can substitute your boots. Maybe you can substitute your helmet. You don't have to substitute everything. You get a lot out of it just by doing a little bit. So that's kind of my argument against this issue of build viability. I understand people like to look at, this is the best of the best, the absolute best meta build for this mechanic. Sure, having a tripped out Mega Magic Find Tornado Shot Deadeye is probably the best. But you don't have to do that. You can still play the game the way you want to play it. You can enjoy it. You can still get most of the benefits by, making your own character. Shifting a few pieces of gear around. It's not that big of a deal, really. The third point is the strongest argument, and that is the FOMO argument, fear of missing out. Now, this has everything to do with how people experience a game. This is a lot more to do with feelings than anything else. Obviously, it's harder to argue against the way people feel about something. I can't sit here and say, well, you feel about it this way. Well, I feel about it this way. Therefore, you're wrong or something like that. No, I mean, I get it. Like, it's a little bit unfair both ways, trying to argue for or against the FOMO thing. But basically, it's like this. So people have argued that they would like to see God touch farming be an optional thing. Okay, I can get behind that cause, actually. I mean, there are probably a few different ways that we could fix that. Imagine if there was a keystone in the Alice passive skill tree that said, touched by the gods, and suddenly if you take that keystone, then you start getting, all of your rares start being God-touched rares. Not all of them, but rather it would say occasionally. It would be like normal now. And if you don't take that keystone, fine, you never see them. Maybe the keystone also makes them have 20% more health and damage, and then they, reduce the difficulty of them by default or something. I bet that would make a ton of people happy. That would probably make a lot of people happy and not a lot of people unhappy if they did something like that. So I will concede this notion that, FOMO is a real thing. And it definitely probably, if they were to change anything, I hope that GGG, when they come to balancing this stuff, that they don't do anything much more drastic than that. I really hope they just kind of contend with the FOMO argument. However, even the FOMO argument a little bit weak, in my opinion, because, there was a time when we had to pick and choose our league mechanics based on the zone we were playing in, based on the map we were running. You all remember Haywark Hamlet, right? That was the harvest zone. If you're in that zone, you're probably running harvest. And maybe you want to run harvest, you got to take the they weren't sextants at the time, the watchstone. You got to buy a watchstone that forces sacred groves onto the map. Costs you an arm and a leg, but hey, that's what you got to do if you want to farm up your harvest materials. You spec fully into harvest, you take the sacred grove compasses or watchstones, and then you get to work. And then, shortly after that, you decide, I'm going to run something else. I'm going to go down to Turn's End. I'm going to run, I don't know, Alva or whatever. And a Sacred Grove randomly spawns in your map. How do you feel about that? Feels kind of bad. You were just in Haywark Hamlet, and now you have a free Sacred Grove, but you're not spec'd into it, and the points where you spec into it matter so much. You feel like you have to do the harvest, but it's going to be kind of lackluster. It's not going to be very good. What do? You just skip the harvest. You do it anyway. Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot different between that and the whole God Touch thing, in my opinion. Yes, you are forced to see Sacred Groves spawn randomly sometimes, even when you're not spec for them, which is the equivalency of saying even if you're not wearing Magic Find gear, you're forced to see God Touch rares occasionally. There's not a whole lot of difference between that, in my opinion. We could stretch this out even to include things like bossing. Bossing is a way you can make currency. It's a very, 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 very lucrative way to make currency. So is 5-way farming, for that matter. So why don't you do bossing or 5-way farming? Don't you feel like you're going to miss out on that currency if you don't do that farm? And you might say, well, I don't like to do that farm. Or I don't want to do that. It sounds boring. Or it sounds menial. I don't want to do it. Okay, well, then next time you run into a God Touch monster, skip it. Okay? Just like you run into the harvest, skip it. Just like you think about doing bossing, skip it. Buy the carry. You know, it's all the same, really. I think, you know, you play the game the way you want to play it. Yeah, I get it. The God Touch monster is sometimes going to get in your face, you know, and maybe wreak havoc on you. But that is kind of a small price to pay, I guess, for deciding not to engage with that content in the way it was meant to be engaged with. So that's kind of how I feel about FOMO. So I want to introduce you guys to Snooze Quantities and Rarities here. This is a Discord channel that I have here. And you know what? There's a really cool channel thread, I guess, called Showcase. People love this, and people love posting their sort of record-breaking divine orbs and then talking about it, hyping each other up. I didn't even know how great this would be, but I mean, just seeing like someone who's never posted on this thread before post something on here, getting excited about something. Maybe they just got 4 divine orbs, is the most they ever got, and now they're gonna hear somebody trolling with a bunch of jewels there. It's pretty funny. Yeah, wow, 33 divine orbs, 16 divine orbs, a bunch of wing scarabs, different people posting different things. We're all hyping each other up. It's been a great experience, great community here. And look at all these different names down here, okay? These are people I did not know before this league. What did it say? There was 141 members online, 341 members offline. And those are all people that didn't exist in this Discord over a month ago, which means they're active users as opposed to, you know, maybe some older Discords here. We got a general discussion. People talk about different things in here. Yeah, if you want to join, you can. Got welcome and rules. You can join up, become a member. If not, fine. You know, I'm not here to really advertise this Discord. I just want to show you guys that, yeah, this exists. There's actually a lot of players who are genuinely excited about the game, the current state of the game, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens next in the next patch. I don't know what's going to happen, but you know what? Even if they nuked God Touch farming out of existence, I wouldn't even be that upset because I enjoy the core game. I'll just go back to divination card farming or some other farming. I mean, I like doing legions anyway for legion specific rewards. So there's all kinds of wonderful things to do in this game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. I do want to hear you guys' opinions, and you know, feel free to debate down in the channel below. Did you agree with some of my pushback on the criticisms about God Touch farming, or did you think it was all a bunch of nonsense? It's fine either way. Just try to be kind and cordial. My goal, again, to reiterate, my goal of this video was to present a sort of dissenting voice against the sort of thought bubble that has been existing for quite some time, this league, and actually been going on a few leagues back, about how the game is not very good because of this or that. No, I disagree. I think it's been a good experience, and you can best rest assured you're going to see me in 3.20 doing some kind of interesting farm mapping, probably mapping, and I will absolutely be coming out with videos, more videos on that. So in the meantime, enjoy the events that are going on. We got to get ready for the next league, for the new, getting our league starts prepped up, ready to go. I'll be doing Delirium everywhere, and I'll essentially be practicing my league start doing that. So look forward to that if you're wanting to see my content there. Until then, I leave you for now. Have fun out there in raid class, all right?